Get ready. You're about to enter the Remso Republic.
Liberty lovers, liberty haters, welcome once again to the one, the only Remso Republic podcast. I'm your host, as always, Remso W. Martinez. Welcome back, and for all of those new listeners coming in, welcome, 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 welcome. I cannot say how glad we are to have you here. We are just literally rocketing forward to season 2, and with each of these episodes, we are literally getting new people each and every time. And as excited as I am to get way more people out there who are, conservatives or libertarians or constitutionalists or whatever little special name tag you want to go ahead and throw on yourself when you go and describe to people your different varied ways of describing yourself. What is really cool is when I find that someone who's listening to the show is, a more of a left-wing guy or gal, and after listening for a while, they go ahead and let me know, hey, one of your episodes really intrigued me, and after listening to you and one of your guests and blah, 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 I think I've changed my mind. And that's really touching. That's really touching. It really lets me know that you guys value what we're doing, and we are really a forum for ideas. Speaking of which, okay, some of you had questions about CPAC because of everything that was going on. And it's, a long time since that happened by the time you're listening to this episode. But, what was kind of cool and was kind of a crash course for us because it was the first time we really tried live streaming from an event. We know you guys hated the audio and all that jazz, and the connection was weak sometimes. But the most popular video we had was talking about how to properly wear a Trump hat. And yes, you guessed it, we have one of the coolest people coming on tonight in terms of the brand new, exhilarating conservative movement. She's of Turning Point USA and the Second Amendment Institute, ladies and gentlemen, Myah Bowermaster. Myah, how do you pronounce your new name? Because I know you recently got married. How do you pronounce that?
I did. So my new name is Myah Bowermaster.
That is awesome. That's like something from He-Man. I feel like each time you say that, lightning should strike in the background. That is so cool. Congratulations to you and your husband.
Thank you so much.
So, Myah, there's a whole bunch of stuff I want to talk to you about tonight, but, I do want to bring back the Trump hat thing because I've had some funny stuff happen since. So, everyone that knows me knows that I didn't vote for Trump. I'm really harsh on him, but I'm getting a lot of flack lately because he's doing a lot of good stuff and a lot of things I like. And, as one guy put it, I'm being extremely nice to him. I've gotten to the point where I even bought a Trump hat just to wear around Fairfax County.
I saw that. That is so great.
Yeah, and it's... I still think it's an ugly hat. I still do. I still think it's the child of a Walmart greeter and an angry trucker at a pit stop somewhere. But I bought the hat because it seems that, going around Fairfax County specifically because it's so close to D.C. and it's, in one of the most multicultural areas of the South, people see it and it's like they literally just want to just explode on sight or something. I never knew that inanimate objects could make people go from civilized human being to just, Antifa feral child.
Absolutely. I call it my triggering object.
It's literally that because I wanted to wear it to go to the dentist today, and I walked out and my dad was a big Trump guy. And I looked at him. It's like, Dad, I'm gonna take out the hat today, and I just want to see how many people flip out. And he said, "You can do that. Don't take a car." And I was like, "What do you mean by that?" He's like, "I believe in your right to wear that hat, but I also don't want your car to get keyed because they might not want to confront you, but they're gonna come after your car as soon as you park." So instantly, the hat went back.
That's actually happened a lot, even in my little conservative county here in Texas.
Seriously?
Yeah. So Stephenville is a town of 17,000, over 10,000 of which are college students, which is where the issue comes in. So the rest of the residents are dairy farmers, mostly cattle and ranchers, rodeo people, small town folk who by and large voted for Trump. But as we are learning through, my time with Turning Point USA and as a young conservative, more and more college campuses are overtaken by liberals. And I don't know if it's a lack of education or going along with the status quo, but there's a disregard and lack of respect for anyone with a different view. So if you have a sticker on your car, you're subject to notes on your windshield, scratched out, ripped off, what have you. And I've actually seen probably more Bernie stickers than Trump in my little conservative town.
That is sad. I mean, I just remember I grew up in Fairfax County from 2008 until 2013 when I graduated from high school. And I just remember, like, if you were not a Obama cult worshiper, you were, like, targeted immediately.
Oh, yeah.
And I was bullied, I was assaulted, I was harassed by students and teachers alike.
Mm-hmm. I was actually 2013. I'm 2 years younger than you, so I was a sophomore, and I always identified as more moderate because I either didn't know what view I had on an issue, or my views on issues were on totally different sides of the aisle. So I was very moderate, and just even being the type at the time to have voted for Obama, possibly like first term, I still got so much flack just criticizing him, just having an issue with one thing that he did. I was, thrown to the wolves in Texas, of all places.
That is insane, because I lived in Fort Hood for a while, and you would have thought that everyone there was just a Bible grabbing, gun toting Republican.
Oh no, not no more, especially since it's so close to Austin.
Yeah, Austin kind of screws it for everyone else.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Speaking of inanimate objects flipping liberals out, I want to go ahead and talk about this one thing tonight, which has actually caused a bit of a stir inside my more libertarian conservative echo chambers. I wrote an article months and months and months back on my website about the fact that I think that people have the right to own 3D printers for the purpose of making guns. And I don't know why it took, because I completely forgotten about that article. But somebody had messaged me, and they were like, I'm a Republican and I'm a gun owner, but what you basically wrote about was just absolutely that's how you get more mass shootings and all this other stuff. And this guy's on the right of the spectrum. I don't even think that progressives read my stuff anymore, nonetheless really listen to my show, except a few of you that are probably listening now, who probably were changed because you listen to the show. But, there's some out there that are just absolute haters. So with Trump in office right now, with the Republicans basically controlling the show at both the state and federal level, this poses the question. We have the biggest opportunity to go ahead and just get rid of so many of Obama's executive orders regarding firearms. I mean, I thought this would be one of those things that liberals would be freaking out about, but I'm not necessarily seeing Republicans really talk about this now. This was one of those things that I worried about for so long. I didn't really even want to purchase a firearm until I was afraid that there were going to be restrictions placed on that or concealed carry. So where's kind of the future with this? Because I know you're a field director of the Second Amendment Institute, right?
Yes, state director. I've kind of pulled back more recently to be working on personal endeavors, but the Second Amendment has always been something near and dear to my heart, whether a young moderate to conservatarian to conservative, what have you, and something close to me. So I want to say the first time I heard about 3D printed guns were about a year and a half ago. 3D printing was getting big. Just like the regular computer, it started out as something that only people with millions of dollars could access, and then it became more mainstream. And, upon researching the topic, I felt a lot of emotions and a lot of thoughts that went along with the idea of it. I'm all for a safe society, but I'm also more libertarian in the sense that I like the idea of being free. And I think that when people really wrap their minds around the essence of humanity, the idea that there is an all-powerful group of individuals who decides what you can and can't do with your life is pretty absurd, honestly. And But I do understand the social contract. I understand giving up some liberty for some safety, especially in this day and age. But the fact of the matter is, no matter intentions be good or not, restricting guns is not doing anything to have a more safe society, but rather a more unsafe society. Guns will stay in the hands of criminals. Clearly, they were not law-abiding citizens before, and they won't be after. But those who are the law-abiding, gun-toting citizens of America will then be restricted from those firearms. So the question comes down to regulation. Should we have it or should we not? And even if we did have regulation, how does it apply when you have 3D printers? Even if you want to outlaw 3D printers, even if you want to outlaw 3D printing guns, where there's a will, there's a way, especially at a time where people are so afraid, for their safety. And I think that there's been a lot more lax. So personally, I went to the range a lot. I still do. And before the election, before November 8th, it was almost impossible to go to the range and get a lane without waiting an hour and a half. You had to schedule your LTC classes, your license to carry classes, months and months in advance because they were so full. People were so afraid that if Hillary Clinton if she was elected and the Supreme Court shifted and then we went back to the Heller decision and that being reversed, people are so afraid that it might come down to being grandfathered in, so to say, that people were flocking to gun ranges, buying up guns left and right. There were gun shows every weekend, which I think was really good in a sense. People are understanding their rights. More and more people on the left are actually starting to learn. Their intentions might not be great because they don't trust law enforcement, but at least for once in their life, they're putting their safety in their own hands rather than expecting the government to protect and provide for them. So I guess when it comes back to 3D printed guns, there's a lot of factors, and I like the idea of people being able to have and own them and do what they will with them. But how are we gonna? I believe in fairness, and if we're gonna have regulation on if I buy a gun and have to register for it, if you create a 3D printed gun, you should go through the same process. I think just fairness for all. If you're gonna abolish one regulation, abolish it across the board. If you're gonna have one, you need to have it across the board. But just an example of a loophole. I'm 19. I have my license to carry in Texas. You have to be 21 years old, but I'm in the military. So with that comes the fact that I cannot legally purchase myself gun ammunition. Until I got my license to carry, I couldn't legally buy handgun ammunition, nor could I buy a handgun. But it is legal for me to obtain handgun ammunition, to have a handgun in my possession, under my care, which makes absolutely no sense. But the fact of the matter is, it was given to me as a present, and no registry anywhere knows that gun with that serial number belongs to me. So our regulations are very faulty, and I think that if we're gonna address the issue of 3D printing, there needs to be an entire discussion on gun regulation as a whole.
Exactly. We're going to keep this conversation going, but first, we got to pay the bills around here. Folks, hang on tight. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back in a moment.
The voice of the Liberty Generation, Remzo W. Martinez.
Take the show on the go by subscribing to the Remzo Republic on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play, and YouTube. Don't be left out.
Hey everyone, the Johnny Rocket Launchpad is Liberty. Each week we strive to bring you the best guests in talk radio. The Johnny Rocket Launchpad delivers weekly interviews of noteworthy politicians, experts, and activists. The Johnny Rocket Launchpad is bringing the party to the Libertarian Party and launching ideas in your direction. Check us out at JohnnyRocketLaunchpad.com, and you can hear me, Kurt Nelson, and the beautiful Heather Nixon talk about the ideas of liberty, rock and roll.
Hey guys, Tim Preuss here, and I wanted to take a minute and invite you to stop over to PreussPodcast.com and give our show a listen. We've got in-depth commentary on the issues that matter to you.
These hookers, fucking whores, are out there.
These hookers, man, I tell you.
Yeah, that's like the most contact I've had with the hooker. Is
them yelling at you.
Yelling at me on Twitter.
We break down the most pressing issues of our time.
This large lady with like tight clothing on. Not appropriately linked tight clothing either.
And we get the most intelligent analysis from friends of ours like Jeffrey Tucker.
You pulled over engine trouble, and what happened? What happened? I don't know. Oh God!
Seriously though, we love putting on a show that both entertains and educates. We're growing, and we'd be thrilled if you joined us. Check out PreussPodcast.com for more. That's PREUSS podcast.com.
Make sure to visit libertarianwingmedia.com, where you can find articles written by libertarians all over the world on all of today's issues. Check out our podcast network with monthly and weekly podcasts. Check out our libertarian t-shirt store with t-shirts like Make Markets Free Again and Make Markets Not War. And you too can become an author at Libertarian Wing Media and write what you want when you want. Just email alexmerced@alexmerced.com. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to the show. We're going to keep our conversation from earlier charging forward, but we can't talk about 3D printed guns without talking about this, and you hit it earlier, Myah. But now this brings in the question as to actual regulation, mainly background checks. I'm one of those people that to own a firearm, that's the ultimate statement of freedom. And people are like, well, what about those that have mental illnesses? Well, when you look at it, people with mental disabilities are usually the best targets. Well, what about the elderly who might not be able to take care of themselves? One, that's a cop-out. But second, the elderly are also the most victimized group by criminals. And then you can keep going down the list, whether it's women, whether it's minorities in certain areas. Nothing spells freedom like holding a firearm in your hand and saying, I'm willing to protect me and what's mine, and you better not cross that barrier. But,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but when it comes to 3D printed guns, I mean, you're absolutely right. Should a person that can print a Glock 19 or an AR-15 at home, should they have to go ahead and register that weapon like someone that would go and buy a weapon? The argument is, well, I went to go to a dealer, like I go Blue Ridge Arsenal here in Chantilly, Virginia, and when I purchased my firearm, I had to get a background check and everything. Whereas if I just owned a 3D printer and I wanted to print a Glock, no one would know. So that brings in the big question that I think bothers a lot of people. You brought up fairness earlier, fairness in the law. Where do you think we should go with this? Either, it's illegal to own a 3D printed weapon that you have not registered, or we just get rid of the whole NICS system entirely. I mean, this is a bit of a beast of a question, but where do you kind of follow the rabbit trail from there?
Well, I think that everything that is addressed, you have to bring down to a fundamental level to really discuss it, and you got to think about. Oftentimes, when we have big change in society and laws, regulations, the backlash of the responses from people who oppose it are often more catastrophic than the actual act of what is changing.
What do you mean?
Imagine that we do away with gun regulation. If you brought it down to a scientific level and you waited for 6 to 12 months and you took down the data of whether or not shootings actually went up or whether or not this or that or the other happened, the bigger issue would not actually be what happened in the statistics, but rather the demonstrators, if you will, or rioters, and how they react and how they the media spins it and how people react to such change, because it's human nature to not react that well to big change. So I think with things like this, it has to be gradual, first of all. And it needs to be discussed at a fundamental level in a way that people on both sides of the aisle can talk about. It's not a partisan issue. It's an everyone. It's a humanitarian issue. It's a fact of the matter that you were born on this planet. You were not born on this country. This country should not be one that dictates so much of your life as to say that you shouldn't have your safety in your own hands. So I guess my point, it would be to talk to people about, showing them situations like with my friend Kimberly Corbin and Antonia Okafor and women like that, and women like myself who've experienced assault. You got to think about putting yourself in their shoes and getting other people to see different perspectives and empathize with the fact that, it's better to have one and not need it than need it and not have it. And I think that it's become this rhetoric that we're just crazy gun-toting people, but in reality, we just want our safety in our own hands. If we could bring it down to on a very fundamental basis of safety and freedom to people, I think that it would be a lot easier to make this change. And I think that we could move towards putting a halt on the 3D printers and the 3D guns, and first focusing on current gun regulation, dealing with what we got now. And then once we can kind of figure out what we've got going on with background checks, with age restrictions, with mental capacity, whether or not you're mentally fit or should own a weapon, etc. Age, I don't think age should play a part. But once you get those things more under control and more free, I think that we can address the issue of 3D printing, because even though 3D printing is becoming more mainstream, the average Joe really is not that accessible to a 3D printer. But I guess what I'd like to see happen with 3D printed guns is regulation for now, so as not to cause a mass panic.
I'm sorry. I just got triggered by that term. I'm sorry.
Regulation, right? A conservative saying regulation sounds crazy. But at the end of the day, I think that politics it doesn't always, but it should come down to what's best for the people. And you got to think in long term, but you also got to think in short term. You got to think about perspective and the people who are truly afraid of guns. And we call them crazy, or we call them trigger, we call them snowflakes. But at the heart of it are people who are misinformed and they're scared. And the humanitarian thing to do is to educate, to inform, to get engaged and involved with people on a very local, personal level, so that they don't have to feel scared anymore, so they don't have to feel like their rights are being infringed upon, so they don't have to feel like...
how are you infringing on someone else's right? I mean, at this point, if you're
You're not. It's perspective.
Gotcha.
And it comes back to the education issue. And to them, in their mindset, in their mind right now, they're terrified. And we got to understand that as conservatives, as constitutionalists, as people who care. Because at the end of the day, us wanting guns in society should not be... it shouldn't be a statement. It should be truly for safety and for the betterment of society. So if we're gonna advance or pull back on gun regulations because of that basis reason, because of that holistic and kind-hearted reason, then we got to think about how they feel. We gotta personalize it them and take it slow, because we didn't like the way that Obama did things. We didn't like drastic change. We didn't like the way that things have been done the past 8 years. So why would we do that to them?
Exactly.
Just ease into it.
Yeah. Myah, we're going to go ahead and finish off the show, but first we got to hit our final commercial break. Folks, hang on tight for the final segment. We'll be back in a moment.
We'll be back shortly. Stay up to date with the latest news and updates by visiting RemzoRepublic.com.
Make sure to subscribe to all the podcasts on the Libertarian Wing Media Podcast Network on Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher, such as the Alex Merced Cast, with interesting interviews with interesting people every week. Breaking Progressives, spending time every week breaking down left-wing narratives and showing what's real and what's fake. Economics Why Not? A weekly look at economics and applying economic principles to daily life. Better Today, a weekly podcast where we take a look on ways to improve your life and be better today. Libertarian Comments is a podcast where we play audio from the video archives of Alex Merced from his videos dating back to 2008. Liberty Public Access, a podcast where anyone can submit an episode. Submit your episodes to Alex Merced at alexmerced.com. Have you been wanting to start your own podcast? Then subscribe to Podcast and Blogging Tips and Tricks, a weekly podcast about how to host your podcast, how to produce your podcast, and how to market your podcast. We'll be adding some monthly podcasts to the lineup soon, including Make Markets Free Again, a monthly look at what's going on in markets and regulation all over the world, and the Free VST podcast, looking at free VST instruments for electronic music producers. Listen to these podcasts by going to libertarianwingmedia.com or subscribing on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play. And if you enjoy the podcast, tell your friends and leave a positive review on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play.
Folks, welcome back. We only have a couple minutes left of the program, but Myah, something you mentioned earlier that I really just want to kind of tap on before we wrap things up is, you mentioned that, if we were to really start looking at this as a serious issue, we might have to put a halt on things. So I've got kind of like a two-part question, then we'll go ahead and wrap things up. One, the cat's out of the bag of this. If we start any type of prohibition on 3D printed weapons, it's going to be like the last time Obama was setting all these indicators that, we might see some restrictions in access to firearms and, everyone and their grandma was buying a gun. So do you think, this is one of those situations where it's like, it's there, might as well let it happen? And then my second part is, I'm upset that Trump has not, been more aggressive in repealing a lot of the executive orders regarding firearms and curbing our Second Amendment rights from the Obama administration. But at the same time, this 3D printed gun issue is something that even a lot of moderate Republicans are kind of nervous about. So do you think this is going to be something we see more in the future, or do you think it's something that is really just going to die down? Because, like you said, the access to it is kind of difficult.
Yeah, and just thinking about the question, so the first part, it's there, why not just let it happen? We kind of don't have a choice. I did talk about wanting to ease into things and creating kind of a regulation to start off with. But at the end of the day, people are going to do what they're going to do. And, we can slap a regulation on there and say, if you don't register your gun and you're caught with it, then so-and-so happens. And you know what? Let it happen. Let's do it that way. But we got to be realistic and understand that it's not going to work. It's not always going to work. And there's going to be people out there who have their non-registered weapons, just as there are now. But at least we can try for now. If you will, say, make the liberals feel better. But really, you got to sometimes care about emotion. You do, because emotion is what drives riots. Emotion is what
which is why I need my 3D printed gun.
Exactly. but you got to think about it both ways. And emotion is what drives them to do these crazy things and have these riots, set things on fire. So if we can do what we can do in a reasonable sense to kind of mediate that, not agitate it, then why not do that? I don't think we need to be taxing them. I don't think we need to be throwing crazy things like that on there, because that's just absurd. But I guess for the second part, we got to think, a lot of Trump's executive orders have been to reverse things Obama did, which are great. But as conservatives, as people of the right of center and even center, we got to think about how we've complained about the power of pen and phone and pen and paper and everything for the past 8 years, and not keep looking to Trump for the first 100 days to change everything radically, because our system was strategically designed by our founders to not allow crazy, drastic measures to be taken within a span of 100 days. You know what I mean? We have Congress, we have a Supreme Court, we have our executive branch, and they're all supposed to be working together. And it's supposed to go slow. It's supposed to be well thought out, well reviewed, not an overnight decision, not something spur of the moment. And sometimes as a country, it takes a lot of patience, and it's hard. You've got pandering from the media. You've got constant headlines that make you feel like it's supposed to happen right here, right now. But sometimes it's not. And I think that if we let the system do its thing and go slow and think very strategically and tactically, I think that we come out with a lot of a better outcome. We got this issue with the whole Obamacare light bill, and I think that it's a product of rushed and hurried decisions that people have been, kicking down the doors with their torches and pitchforks, waiting for a replacement, waiting for something new. But you got to let the system do its thing. You got to let them figure it out and talk about it, revise, replan, republish, discuss. So I think that it's the same issue with the whole 3D printing, with gun regulation, with people flocking to go buy their guns. Is people need to take a second, take a breath, and really get to the heart of the issue, and let Congress do its thing. Get involved on a local level. If you got an issue, talk to your congressman. If they're not listening, talk to the other congressman. Write, talk, discuss. Don't be afraid to talk to your neighbor who is totally against guns, because we start losing the battle when we stop listening. And at the end of the day, you got to take that extra moment on your day, on your week, to really get on the level of the person who opposes you and understand why they feel the way they do and how we can lead from the middle. They always say, I don't know the exact saying, but you can believe from the side, but you need to lead from the middle. This isn't an all right society. It shouldn't be an all left. You got to think of the whole American people and how we can mediate all the issues we have and find a good, solid ground that is truly in the best interest of the people.
Definitely. Wholeheartedly agree with you. Myah, if people want to, read some of your stuff, see what you're doing, catch up with you on social media, maybe ask some questions about this extremely important issue, how can they do so?
Okay, well, my Twitter username is Myah, MYAH, 1997. You're going to see a lot of my stuff there most of the time. On Facebook, add me. It's Myah Baeza now, so MYAHBAEZA. Most of the things that I was published in and articles that I've been featured in, etc., as well as a lot of my other social media that hasn't been switched over, is still under my maiden name. When you just Google me, I'm the only Myah Bowermaster in existence. MYAH and then BOWERMASTER. So you'll find me in a flash. You're more likely to find me under my maiden name than under my married name. So
sounds good. Myah, thank you so much for coming on the program. It's been an absolute blast.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, folks, well, usually I give you the whole diatribe of how to follow, share, like, and, spread the show around, but I'll go ahead and give you the short one because I want to go ahead and print some 3D printed guns in a few minutes before the snow in here in Virginia completely destroys me. It's snowing on spring break, isn't that unfair? Go ahead and find how to listen to the show. Leave us a rating and review at www.remsorepublic.com. If you want to find the app or network of your choice, it's just remsorepublic.com/podcast.
And the Self-Defense Radio Network.
As always, America, be good to your neighbor, be awesome, and tune in next week. Good night.
Stay connected to Liberty's Rabble Rouser on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with the latest episodes, blogs, and other available content. What are you waiting for?